What if your thoughts are not as private as you think? What if every idea that crosses your mind, every fear, every desire, doesn't just disappear, but leaves a trace? What if the universe is not silent, but listening? And even more unsettling, what if it responds? Not instantly, not obviously, but in subtle patterns, coincidences, outcomes that feel too precise to be random. What if your thoughts aren't just inside your head, but echoing through reality itself? There is a moment that almost everyone has experienced, even if they've never fully understood it. A thought appears in your mind, random, fleeting, almost insignificant. You don't act on it, you don't say it out loud, you barely even notice it. And then, somehow, it shows up in the world around you. You think of someone you haven't spoken to in years, and suddenly they call you. You imagine a scenario, and later, in some strange way, it unfolds. You feel something deeply, fear, excitement, anticipation, and reality seems to align with that feeling in ways that are difficult to explain. Most people dismiss these moments. Coincidence, they say. Pattern seeking, they say. The brain connecting dots that were never meant to be connected. And sometimes they're right. But what if they're only partially right? What if something else is happening beneath the surface? Something subtle, something difficult to measure, something that doesn't fit neatly into our current understanding of reality. Because the truth is, your thoughts are not just abstract ideas floating in isolation. They are physical processes, electrical impulses moving through neural networks, chemical reactions firing in precise sequences, tiny bursts of energy happening constantly inside your brain. And energy doesn't just disappear, it transforms, it moves, it interacts. So the question becomes unavoidable. If your thoughts are forms of energy, where does that energy go? Does it remain contained within your brain, or does it extend beyond it in ways we don't yet fully understand? Science, as it stands, doesn't claim that your thoughts directly shape the external world in any mystical sense, but it does acknowledge something equally powerful. Your thoughts shape your perception, and your perception shapes your actions, and your actions shape your reality. That alone is enough to create the illusion that your thoughts are influencing the world. But what if it goes deeper than that? What if the boundary between inner and outer is not as solid as it seems? Consider this. Every time you think, you are not only generating electrical activity in your brain, you are also influencing your body. Your heart rate changes, your breathing shifts, your posture adjusts, your hormones respond. A single thought can trigger a cascade of physical changes that ripple outward from your mind into your entire biological system. And your body exists in the world. It interacts with the environment. It sends signals. It receives signals. Which means your thoughts, indirectly, are already interacting with reality. But that's just the beginning. Because human beings are not isolated systems. We are constantly influencing one another through language, through behavior, through subtle cues we don't even consciously register. A shift in your mindset changes how you speak, how you look at people, how you respond. And those changes affect others. They respond differently. They behave differently. And suddenly, the world around you begins to shift. Not magically, but causally. Yet from the inside, it can feel like something more, like reality itself is responding to you. And maybe, in a way, it is. Now take this idea further. What if the influence of your thoughts doesn't stop at behavior? What if there are layers of interaction we don't yet fully understand? Physics tells us that everything in the universe is interconnected at some level. Particles interact across distances. Fields extend beyond visible boundaries. At the quantum level, the act of observation appears to influence outcomes. These ideas are often misunderstood, exaggerated, or misapplied, but they point towards something intriguing. The universe is not as rigid and separate as it appears. It is dynamic, relational, deeply interconnected. So it's not unreasonable to ask, where do you fit into that system? Are you just a passive observer or an active participant? Because if your thoughts influence your actions, and your actions influence the world, then your thoughts are already part of the chain that shapes reality. But here's where it becomes more subtle. Your brain is constantly filtering information, deciding what matters, what to focus on, what to ignore. If you are thinking about something repeatedly, your brain begins to prioritize it. You start noticing related patterns, opportunities, signals, things that were always there but invisible to you before. This creates a powerful effect. It feels like the world is responding to your thoughts, but in reality, you are responding to the world differently, and that difference changes everything. Now imagine this happening continuously, your thoughts shaping your perception guiding your actions influencing outcomes, and the outcomes reinforcing your beliefs, and the cycle repeating. Over time, this loop becomes your reality, a reality that feels deeply personal, deeply specific, almost as if it were designed for you. But here's the unsettling part. This loop can work in both directions. Positive thoughts can open possibilities. Negative thoughts can narrow them. Fear can create avoidance. Confidence can create opportunity. And slowly, almost invisibly, your inner world begins to mirror your outer world. Not because the universe is consciously responding to you, but because you are constantly shaping how you engage with it. Still, there are moments that feel too precise, too aligned, too unlikely. Moments that seem to go beyond perception and behavior. Moments that feel like echoes, as if something you thought reverberated outward and came back to you. These moments are difficult to explain. They sit at the edge of understanding, and they leave a question behind. What if your thoughts are not entirely contained? What if they do extend beyond you? Not in a mystical, supernatural way, but in a way we simply don't yet fully understand. Think about sound. When you speak, your voice creates vibrations that travel through the air. Those vibrations can be detected, recorded, even years later. Now imagine thought as a different kind of signal, not audible, not visible, but still a form of activity, a pattern, a structure, something that exists even if we don't have the tools to measure it externally. If that were true, then every thought you've ever had has left some kind of trace, somewhere. Not necessarily in the way you imagine, but not entirely gone either. And that idea changes how you see yourself, because it suggests that your inner world is not completely isolated. It is part of a larger system, a system that is constantly evolving, constantly interacting, constantly responding, not consciously, not intentionally, but inevitably. And if that's the case, then your thoughts matter, not just because they influence you, but because they are part of something bigger, a network of cause and effect that extends beyond what you can see. But here's the most important part. This is not about control. You are not controlling the universe with your thoughts. That idea oversimplifies something much more complex. Instead, you are participating in it. Your thoughts are inputs, your actions are outputs, and the world is the feedback loop. Together, they create the experience you call reality. And once you begin to see that, even slightly, something shifts. You become more aware of what you think, not in a forced or anxious way, but in a curious way. You start to notice patterns, connections, subtle influences.
you realize that your thoughts are not just background noise. They are part of the process, part of the system, part of the unfolding. And that awareness changes how you move through the world. Because the question is no longer, do my thoughts matter? The question becomes, how are they shaping my experience right now? And once you start asking that, you begin to listen more carefully, not to the universe, but to yourself. Because whether your thoughts echo beyond you or not, they are already shaping everything you see, everything you feel, everything you become. And maybe, just maybe, that's where the real power lies, not in controlling reality, but in understanding your role within it. Because the moment you become aware of the loop, you are no longer just inside it, you are observing it, and that changes everything.